Okay, welcome to the third video in our three-part series on mechanical rigging and 3ds Max. In parts 1 and 2 we looked at how to use IK solvers to do animation for parts on our landing gear, and in particular we used the HI IK solver for doing some in-plane joint movement for the upper portion of the landing gear, and in part 2 we looked at how to use the HD IK solver for doing movement of joints in multiple planes. In this video we're going to look at how do we do argument based control of those IK based animations. Now, one of the problems that we run into is that since these bones are already under the control of an IK solver, we can't add an argument-based controller to those bones. It would be conflicting positioning to have argument-based control and IK on the same set of bones. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to start creating a second set of bones to overlay the first, and we're going to drive that through the argument-based control, but we're going to end up using IK as a means to help position things. So let's start out by creating our second bone structure here. So we have in place today our IK-based bone structure. Note that we have, our bones identified as bones with single back fin as being IK-based bone structures. What we're going to do now is create an argument-based set of bones. So we're going to go to Animation, Bone Tools, Create Bones. And instead of creating a single fin set of bones, we're going to go ahead, we've turned off the back fin and we're going to turn on the side fins, and now we can create a new set of bones that looks different from the first set here. Now when we create this set of bones, we could try to position it over these joints of the bone structure we have in place today, but if we do that, it's going to try and attach it to the bones that are there. So rather than doing that, we're going to offset it and create an additional set of bones similar to the ones that are there, but not exactly. Alright, so our second set of bones is in place, and it's now time to align those bones. So we're going to take this bone and align it with the original root bone, XYZ position. Now we're going to go into bone edit mode and align the positions of the remaining bones. So pick the second bone and align it with its IK partner, and we'll pick the third or terminator bone of the argument based set to align with its IK partner. Alright, now that we have it aligned in position, we need to go one further step and align it in orientation. So let's go back to our root bone, align IK partner, turn off position, and turn on orientation. I found that if you try and align with both position and orientation at the same time, you end up having to align multiple times anyway, and it gets a little confused sometimes when you do that. So I just find it best to align position first, then go back and align orientation. And here we go. Last terminator bone aligned with its, see if we can do this. Alright. Alright, so here we have our second set of bones perfectly aligned with the IK set of bones. And what we're going to do is we're going to start configuring this second set of bones to be argument-based control and operating similar to, but not the same as, the IK set. Alright, so let's go ahead and link our root bone to our landing gear strut, and we can link the bell crank to our argument-based root bone, and we can link our push rod to an argument-based second bone. Alright, so now our model parts are no longer linked to IK, they're actually linked to the argument-based controller bones. But the IK bones are still doing their job. They're still doing what they need to do. So the next set of things that we need to do is configure those bones for argument-based control. So we're going to go and select our root bone. We're going to go to the Motion tab. We're going to assign a controller to it and pick argument-based rotation. We're going to add, and let's pick 999. And we're going to call this bell crank rotation. And select our second bone, assign argument-based rotation, add 999 upper rod rotation. Okay, so now we've got argument-based controllers for our root and middle bone for our argument-based controller set of bones. The next thing that we're going to do is get our landing gear strut set up. So we need to control the landing gear, and it's going to be a different number, but again we're going to select it, pick rotation, assign our argument-based rotation, and for this one we know that the ultimate goal is to use argument 5 for the left landing gear strut retraction or rotation into the fuselage. So we'll pick landing gear 5 and we'll call this strut retract Alright. So let's make sure that we've got everything set up the way that we need it. We're going to pick and animate our strut first. So starting with the strut, select auto key. Let's go add an auto key. Since we're already in the extended position, we want the time slider to be at the extended value. And we know that the value for extended in the DCS World Simulator is going to be 1 for extended and 0 for retracted. So we're going to position here, this would be at time 0, this would be at argument value 1, argument value 0, argument value -1 on the time scale. So now we have the playback being controlled by an argument value that ranges from -1 to 1, and the extend position is at 1, so we'll start here. Now we'll go to auto key, and we're going to start the retraction at time 90. Let's set a key for that, and then we'll go to 60, do a rotation for 30 degrees. Let's see. All right. 30 degrees rotation. Set our key. Move forward 30 more. Do another 30 degrees rotation. And move forward to time 0, or backwards I should say. And do another 30 degrees rotation for that. Okay, so here we have our landing gear at time 0, and the argument base 5 setup for the strut is in place. We can get out of auto key, and note we can drag things around. Now, parts of the landing gear are not moving, and that's because those parts have not been animated using argument based control. And what we're doing right now is driving argument based control changes. So we're going to leave that at time 0 and our rotation at time 0, so everything is staying in sync. The next thing that we're going to do is we are going to animate our bone structures. So at time 0 we need this set of bones to align with our IK bones. And so we picked our bone, we're going to set it active, we can start our auto key, and we are at time 0, so let's go ahead and take this. We are going to select align with the root bone, orientation only, on our IK solution. So argument based control bone gets aligned with the IK bone. Select the next bone. Notice we're starting at the root bone first. Select the next bone in the chain. Align it with its IK partner, orientation only. Okay. So back to our bell crank. Set the key. Upper push rod. Set active. Set the key. And notice that I'm doing this with 999. Ultimately, we want to use the argument 5 for this, but for right now we're going to set this up differently because we don't want the animations that we have in place already interfering with the animations that we just did for argument 5. So if we had animations being driven by our dragging the strut to a new position, that might interfere with the time scale also wanting to do animation. So we're doing our animations separately from where we want to actually have them end up. Alright, so there is key position for time 0 for both those two parts. So now we can move the time slider forward. We're going to take and rotate our strut. So plus 30 for plus 30 on the timeline. And now we take our arc-based root bone, Make sure it's active. Bell crank rot. Set align. Rotation only. Pick the argument-based next bone. It's active as well. And align it with its IK partner orientation only. Alright, there's 30. And we'll move it up to 60 on the timeline. Add another 30 degrees of rotation. Take our root bone, argument-based control bone, align it, IK partner, next bone in the chain, align it, IK partner. Move the time slider up to 90. Add another 30 degrees in the rotation. And repeat. Select the root bone for argument-based control. Align root bone IK. Select root bone argument-based control. Align IK partner. And there you go. So what we have now is a solution that has argument 999 being animated and argument 5. Now in order to fix that, we go back and select our root bone. We're going to make sure that we have the bell crank rotation selected. We're going to change the argument number to 5. And we're going to take the next one and we're going to select it and change its argument number to 5. Now note that the rotation of this doesn't quite match up, and that is because the time scale is at time 0, but our model is currently rotated to time 1. So if we want, we just fix that. By rotating it back so that the model is aligned with time 0. Now we have everything aligned. So our argument-based control is doing what we need it to do. Alright, so what does this look like when we export this? I'm going to show you another trick here that we have to use for workaround. The first thing that we're going to do, since I haven't done this yet, is we're going to add some textures to the parts. So let's texture our upper strut block, texture our lower strut block. We're going to add texture to our bell crank and our wheel assembly. And then let's do white for our upper push rod. And we'll do white for the lower push rod. Alright, so here we have our parts in place. They're textured, and the next thing that we need to do is export the model. So let's export, and I'm going to place it into my animated model section, EDM, and we'll just choose XXX for now, overwrite, yes, and wait for the model viewer to pop up. Now a lot of this is specific to DCS world, so it may not apply to your particular situation, but the general process will let you see what's going on. Alright, so here we have the model of the aircraft rendered in a viewer, and we can see that the wheel is rotated into its retracted form. Normally their weight-off wheels would rotate that down, and the wheels would be a little flatter than that, but this is for demo purposes. So we're going to see what animation 5 does. We're going to set our controller argument number to 5, and let's change the value from 0 to 1 and see what happens. Alright, so we can see the bell crank is rotating and parts are moving. We don't actually have the wheel moving. That might be because the wheel is not attached appropriately. Oh, we haven't done the lower animation yet, that's why. But you can see that the bell crank and the upper push rod is doing what it's supposed to, rotating the parts around in place as they're supposed to. And when we do the lower push rod and animate it, we'll be able to see the rest of the animation as well. So that's it for the basics. We're going to break this into two parts. So this is 3A, and we'll do a 3B that covers how do we do chained IK chains animation driven by an argument-based controller in part 3B. Thanks for watching.